Ambassador Gray stood at the observation deck of the Mars outpost, his 4 eyes fixed on the blue planet that hung in the darkness before him. 200 years of watching, waiting, and reporting had led to this moment. His long fingers drummed nervously on the crystal viewport as he watched another primitive human satellite pass by, its solar panels gleaming in the sunlight. "Still watching the monkeys, sir?" asked Captain Stone, his second in command. The captain's green scales shifted color slightly, showing his amusement. "Those monkeys built 3 space stations and colonized their moon in less than a century," Gray replied, not taking his eyes off Earth. "That's faster than your people did, if I remember correctly." Stone fell silent. The truth was, humans scared him. Most species took thousands of years to progress from discovering electricity to achieving spaceflight. Humans had done it in less than 200 years. It wasn't natural. A soft chime echoed through the room as their daily report arrived from the council. Gray opened the holographic display with a wave of his hand. His upper eyes scanned the war updates while his lower ones kept watch on Earth. The news wasn't good. The coalition forces had pushed back the council's defensive line in 3 more systems. 50 years of war had left both sides exhausted, but the coalition refused to negotiate. Millions were dead, billions were refugees, and hundreds of worlds lay in ruins. "Sir," called one of the human watching specialists from his monitoring station, "you should see this." Gray walked over, his long robes sweeping the floor. The specialist pointed to his screen, showing a detection of unusual activity from Earth's dark side. "They're testing something new," the specialist explained. "Some kind of pulse weapon. Our sensors can't quite figure it out." Gray leaned closer. The humans were always testing new weapons, but they kept most of their military activities hidden on their dark side. The council thought this meant humans were primitive and scared of being discovered. Gray wasn't so sure anymore. "Look at these energy readings," the specialist continued. "They're using some kind of magnetic pulse technology. It's strange. Not like anything we've seen before." "Sir," Captain Stone's voice cut through the room. "Emergency transmission from the Outer Defense Fleet." The main screen lit up with urgent messages. A refugee fleet had entered the solar system, pursued by coalition warships. The Council's defensive fleet was engaging the enemy, but they were outnumbered. Gray's 4 eyes widened as he watched the battle unfold at the edge of the system. 30 coalition warships against 10 Council defenders, with 5 refugee ships caught in the middle. The Council ships fought bravely, but they were being torn apart. "The refugee ships are changing course," Stone reported, his scales now a pale white of fear. They're heading toward Earth." Gray felt his heart skip a beat. This was exactly what the Council had feared for 2 centuries. Their presence would be revealed to humanity, not through careful diplomacy, but through desperate refugees fleeing toward the only habitable planet in range. "Sir," the specialist called again, his voice shaking. "The humans, they're moving." Gray rushed back to the viewport. In Earth's orbit, lights were appearing. Dozens, then hundreds of them, rising from the dark side of the planet like a swarm of fireflies. "That's impossible," Stone whispered. "Our sensors never detected a fleet this size." But there it was, a human fleet, emerging from hidden bases on Earth's dark side and their moon. Not the primitive rockets the Council thought they had, but real warships, smaller than coalition vessels, but sleek, aggressive, and definitely armed. 200 years, Gray said softly. "We thought we were watching them, learning their weaknesses, but they were watching us too, weren't they? Learning, preparing, waiting." He turned to his communications officer. "Send an emergency signal to the Council. Tell them." He paused, watching the human fleet form up with practiced precision. "Tell them humanity is about to join the war." The refugee ships tumbled through space, their engines glowing red from overuse. Inside the lead vessel, Admiral Walker of the Council Defense Fleet watched his tactical display with growing despair. 3 of his defensive ships had already been destroyed, and the coalition forces were still coming. "Admiral," His sensor officer called out, "The humans. They're launching more ships." Walker turned his attention to the blue planet ahead. He had spent years studying the classified reports about Earth, but nothing had prepared him for this. The human fleet was massive, appearing from hidden bases all across their solar system. Not just from Earth, but from their moon, from asteroid bases, and even from what looked like underwater launch sites on Earth itself. "Send a message to the coalition ships," Walker ordered. "Tell them they're entering restricted space. Tell them there's a primitive species here we need to protect." But the coalition ships didn't slow down. They were desperate for a victory, and the refugee ships carried important council scientists and their families. Taking them prisoner would be a major victory. The first coalition shots streaked past the refugee ships, missing by inches. Children screamed in the crowded halls of the refugee vessels. Many of these civilians had already lost their homes to the war, and now they were about to lose their lives too. That's when Walker's communication officer shouted, "Admiral, the humans are broadcasting." A strong, clear signal cut through all channels, transmitted in perfect Council standard language. "This is Admiral Jones of the United Earth Defense Force. Coalition vessels, you are ordered to stand down immediately. This system is under human protection. You have 30 seconds to comply." The Coalition response came instantly. "This is Admiral Bright of the Coalition. Earth is not a Council world. These refugees are enemies of the Coalition. Stand aside or be destroyed with them." Walker watched in amazement as the human fleet moved. Their formation was unlike anything he had seen in 50 years of war. While Council and Coalition ships always maintained careful distance in neat formations, the human ships moved in what looked like chaos. They weaved between each other at speeds that should have caused collisions. 20 seconds, the human admiral's voice came again, completely calm. Walker's tactical officer gasped. "Sir, the humans are launching smaller craft. Hundreds of them." Indeed, smaller ships were pouring out of the larger human vessels. But unlike the escape pods Walker expected, these were clearly attack craft. They moved even faster than the capital ships, darting through space like angry insects. 10 seconds, came the human voice. The Coalition ships started to spread out, preparing for battle. Their energy shields hummed to life, creating the supposedly impenetrable barrier that had made Council Coalition battles so long and costly. "Time's up," Admiral Jones announced. "Coalition forces, you were warned. Earth Defense Force, execute Operation Firefly." What happened next made Walker's jaw drop. The human attack craft suddenly lit up with strange energy readings. They weren't powering weapons. They were turning their entire hulls into weapons. Each small ship became a massive electromagnetic pulse generator. The Coalition ships didn't even have time to fire. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, did nothing against the EMP barrage. Ship after ship went dark, their power systems overloaded. "Incredible," Walker whispered. The humans hadn't built better shields or weapons. They had figured out how to bypass energy shields completely. As the Coalition ships drifted powerless, the larger human vessels moved in. Walker saw mechanical arms extending from their hulls, ready to grapple the disabled ships. They weren't going to destroy the Coalition forces. They were going to capture them. Admiral Jones's voice came one last time. "Refugee vessels, you are under Earth's protection now. Please follow your assigned escorts to the safety of our orbit. Welcome to humanity's home." The war ends today. The United Earth Defense Force headquarters buzzed with activity. Deep under the Rocky Mountains, General West stood in the command center, watching dozens of holographic displays showing the disabled Coalition ships. His weathered face showed no emotion as reports came in from the capture teams. "Sir," his aide reported, "the Council ambassador from Mars is requesting an emergency meeting. Should we reveal that we've known about their observation post all along?" The general allowed himself a small smile. "Bring them in. It's time they learned who they've really been watching." Minutes later, Ambassador Gray and his team were escorted into the command center. Their four eyes widened at the sight of technology that should have been impossible for primitive humans to possess. The underground base stretched for miles, filled with equipment that matched or exceeded Council standards. "Welcome to Earth," General West said simply. "I believe we have a lot to discuss." Gray found his voice first. How long have you known about us?" "We detected your Mars base about 100 years ago," the general replied. "Around the same time we picked up signals from your war. We've been watching both sides, learning your strengths and weaknesses." A large screen showed detailed analysis of Coalition and Council ship designs. Every weakness was highlighted. Their dependence on energy shields, their predictable tactics, their fear of close combat. "But our sensors never detected any of this," Gray protested, waving at the advanced equipment around them. "Of course not," the general said. "You were looking for energy signatures like your own technology. We developed our technology in a different direction. When you expected radio waves, we used quantum communication. When you looked for shield generators, we built armor and jammers instead." New images appeared on the screens. Human ships launching from underwater bases, moon facilities hidden under lunar dust, asteroid bases that looked like natural rock from the outside. "We hid in plain sight," the general continued. "Your people thought our satellites were primitive because that's what we wanted you to see. Every failed rocket launch, every clumsy space mission, all carefully planned to maintain the illusion." Ambassador Gray sank into an offered chair, his legs weak. Why hide for so long?" "Because we weren't ready," a new voice said. Admiral Jones appeared on a screen, speaking from her flagship. "We needed to understand the bigger picture. The war, the politics, the technology, everything. We needed to be sure we could win, not just fight." The screens now showed human boarding teams entering the disabled Coalition ships. Instead of energy weapons, they carried simple ballistic guns. The Coalition crews, helpless without their powered armor and energy shields, were surrendering in droves. "You see," General West explained, "we learned that both sides had forgotten the basics. You relied so much on energy shields that you forgot about physical armor. Your crews never trained for combat without powered systems. You fight at long range because you are afraid of getting close." "And now?" Gray asked quietly. "Now we're going to end this war," the general stated. "Those refugees you were trying to protect, they're just the latest victims in a 50-year war that's killed millions. We're not going to stand by anymore." He turned to face the ambassador fully. "We're not joining the Council, Ambassador Gray. Not yet. First, we're going to show you a better way to fight. And then, we're going to show you a better way to make peace." The screens changed again, showing Earth's orbital stations preparing to receive the refugee ships. Medical teams were already mobilizing. Aid supplies were being loaded onto transport ships. "Your people thought we were primitive because we still have wars on Earth," General West said softly. "But that's exactly why we're perfect for this moment. We know how to fight, yes. But more importantly, we remember what comes after the fighting. We remember how to heal." In the war room of the captured Coalition flagship, Admiral Jones spread out a holographic map of the nearby star systems. Around her stood Council military leaders, their expressions a mix of shock and admiration as she explained humanity's battle plan. "Your biggest mistake," she said, pointing to the Coalition's main fleet positions, "was thinking that advanced technology means better technology. You forgot the basics of warfare." Commander Red, one of the Council's most experienced officers, leaned forward. Show us what we missed." The Admiral pressed a button, and a simulation appeared above the table. It showed a typical Council Coalition battle, with ships firing energy weapons at each other from long range, their shields glowing as they absorbed the hits. "Look at this," she said. "Your battles last for days because you're both fighting the same way. Shields up, stay at range, trade shots until someone's shield fails. It's like watching two turtles fight." She pressed another button, and the simulation changed to show a human ship moving in close to a coalition vessel. The human ship was smaller, but it moved fast, almost like a dancer. "We studied Earth's old sea battles," Admiral Jones explained. "Back when wooden ships fought with cannons. Do you know what won those battles? Not just better guns, but better movement. Getting close, boarding actions, taking ships instead of destroying them." The council officers watched as the simulation showed human boarding teams entering a coalition ship. The coalition crew's powered armor and energy weapons were useless in the tight corridors. "Simple bullets," Commander Red said quietly, "while we were building more powerful energy weapons. You forgot that sometimes old technology works better," the Admiral finished. "Energy shields are great against lasers and plasma. They do nothing against a piece of metal moving at high speed." She changed the display again, showing the EMP weapons that had disabled the coalition fleet. "And these? We got the idea from solar flares. Natural events that could disrupt electronics. Why build a bigger gun when you can just turn off your enemy's defenses?" The door opened, and General West entered with Ambassador Gray. The ambassador's 4 eyes were fixed on a data pad showing casualty reports, or rather, the lack of them. "That's the most impressive part," he said. "You captured 30 coalition ships without killing their crews. Even in victory, you chose to minimize deaths." Admiral Jones nodded. "That's the second part of our strategy. The coalition fights so hard because they think surrender means death. We're showing them there's another way." The screens around them showed coalition prisoners being treated well, receiving medical care alongside the refugees they had been chasing. Some were already talking to council negotiators, sharing intelligence willingly. "Now," the Admiral said, turning back to the star map, "let's talk about the next phase. We've studied the coalition's main fleet formations. They're predictable, always following the same patterns. They never expect an enemy to get close because no one has ever tried." She pointed to specific coalition fleet positions. Their flagship groups always stay in the rear, protected by screening ships. Their commanders have never faced close combat. They've never had to fight without power armor or energy shields. General West stepped forward. "We're going to change everything about how this war is fought, and we're going to do it in the next 5 hours." The council officers looked at each other, their expressions changing from doubt to hope. For 50 years, they had fought a losing war. Now, these humans who they had dismissed as primitive were showing them a completely new way to fight. Commander Red stood straighter. "What do you need from us?" Admiral Jones smiled. "Just watch and learn. And be ready to accept their surrender. Because after today, the coalition is going to learn why humanity survived all its own wars. We don't just know how to fight. We know how to end fights." Hour 1 began with silence. The human fleet appeared at the edge of coalition space like ghosts. Their ships ran dark, using no active sensors, no shield systems, nothing that could be detected. They had learned from Earth's deep-sea creatures. In space, like in the ocean's depths, being quiet meant being deadly. "Launch the EMPs," Admiral Jones ordered from her command ship. Just like we practiced. Thousands of small drones shot forward from the human fleet. The coalition's early warning systems finally detected the attack, but it was too late. The drones detonated in a massive wave of electromagnetic pulses. "First hour complete," General West reported from Earth Command. 80% of coalition shields are down. Hour 2 started with thunder. The human fleet's rail guns opened fire, launching solid metal rounds at speeds that made them glow like stars. Coalition ships, designed to handle energy weapons, had sacrificed physical armor for better shields. Now, with their shields down, they were defenseless. "This is why we studied Earth's old naval battles," Admiral Jones told the watching council officers. "Armor-piercing shells never go out of style." By the end of the second hour, the coalition's front line was in chaos. Ships spun helplessly, their hulls pierced but their crews alive. Exactly as planned. Hour 3 brought the wolves. Human boarding craft swarmed out from their carrier ships. Inside each one, soldiers carried simple weapons: ballistic rifles, shotguns, and body armor. No energy weapons that could punch holes in spaceship hulls. No powered armor that could fail without power. "Coalition crews are surrendering in mass numbers," reported Commander Red, watching in amazement. "They've never trained for this kind of combat. Their weapons need power to work. Yours don't." The human boarders moved through ship after ship, securing crews and gathering intelligence. Each captured ship provided codes and data for the next target. Hour 4 marked the breaking point. The Coalition's command structure collapsed as reports flooded in from their captured ships. The human tactics were unlike anything in 50 years of war. There was no defense in their manual for this kind of attack. "We're receiving surrender signals from 3 Coalition battle groups," an officer announced. "They're asking for terms." Admiral Jones's reply was broadcast to all ships. "Power down your weapons. Prepare to be boarded. Your crews will not be harmed." Hour 5 began with a message from the Coalition Supreme Command. "Stop. Please stop. We surrender." The human fleet held position, their work nearly done. In just 5 hours, they had accomplished what the Council couldn't do in 50 years. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through simple, effective tactics that the Coalition never expected. General West walked through Earth Command, looking at the final battle statistics. Coalition ships disabled: 2,147. Coalition ships destroyed: 0. Coalition personnel captured: 89,432. Coalition personnel casualties: 126, minor injuries only. Human ships lost: 0. "This is how you end a war," he told Ambassador Gray, who stood in shocked silence. "Not by destroying your enemy, but by showing them that continuing to fight is pointless." The screen showed human medical ships moving in to help injured Coalition crew members. Supply ships were already delivering food and water to captured vessels. Even as prisoners were being processed, they were being treated with respect. "I don't understand," Gray said finally. "You could have destroyed them all. Why show mercy?" Admiral Jones's voice came over the command channel. "Because that's the second lesson humanity learned from our own wars. The peace that follows is just as important as the victory that ends the fighting. Today we showed them we could beat them. Tomorrow we'll show them why they should join us." As the last Coalition ships surrendered, the 5-hour war came to an end. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as primitives, but as teachers. They had not just won a war, they had changed the way wars would be fought forever. 1 week after the 5-hour war, Earth's orbital space was filled with ships. Coalition vessels floated alongside Council ships, their crews working together to repair battle damage. Below them, Earth's cities glowed with new life as refugees found shelter among humanity's billions. In New York's United Nations building, now serving as the Peace Conference Center, Coalition leader Black sat across from Admiral Jones. His hand shook slightly as he signed the peace treaty. "I still can't believe it," he said, looking at the human admiral. "We fought the Council for 50 years, and you defeated us in 5 hours. But instead of destroying us, you're helping us rebuild." Admiral Jones passed him a cup of coffee, a drink that Coalition officials had quickly grown to love. "That's because we learned something from Earth's own wars. The worst peace treaties in history were the ones that punished the losers. The best ones were those that helped everyone rebuild." Through the window, they could see refugee children playing in the UN garden. Coalition and Council children played together, already forgetting they were supposed to be enemies. Their parents sat nearby, sharing Earth food and stories. In orbit, Commander Red supervised the repair efforts from a joint command center. He watched in amazement as human engineers taught Coalition and Council mechanics how to combine their technologies in new ways. "Your shield systems are actually pretty good," a human engineer explained to a mixed group of alien technicians. "They just need backup systems that don't rely on power, Look at Earth's old castles. They had moats and walls and multiple layers of defense. That's what your ships need. The coalition crews, expected to be bitter in defeat, were instead eager to learn. Humans taught them hand-to-hand combat, showed them how to fight without powered armor, and trained them to think creatively in battle. In return, the aliens shared their advanced technology, helping humans improve their ships while keeping their practical approach. At Earth's refugee centers, human doctors worked alongside alien medical staff. They discovered that human medicine, developed without advanced technology, often found simple solutions that alien doctors had forgotten. Meanwhile, alien medical technology helped cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. "This is how peace should work," General West said as he toured a refugee camp in Africa. "Everyone learns from each other. Everyone gets stronger together." The camp was a miracle of cooperation. Human farmers taught aliens how to grow Earth crops without relying on advanced farming machines. Alien scientists helped modify the plants to grow better in Earth soil. Together, they were creating new ways to feed both Earth's population and the war refugees. In the Mars observation post, Ambassador Gray wrote his final report to the Council. The screens around him showed the incredible progress made in just 1 week. All coalition prisoners processed and released. 50 refugee camps established worldwide. Joint repair operations fixing 200 ships per day. New defense treaties signed by all 3 powers. Trade agreements opening Earth's markets to the galaxy. Cultural exchange programs starting on all sides. "Maybe we were wrong," he wrote in his report. "We thought humanity was primitive because they still had wars, because they used simple weapons, because they hadn't achieved perfect peace. But they knew something we had forgotten: how to win a war without destroying your enemy, and how to make peace without keeping hatred alive." In Earth orbit, a new station was being built. It would serve as the headquarters for the new Combined Defense Force, a military organization that would include humans, coalition, and council forces working together. Its motto, suggested by a coalition officer, was simple: victory through wisdom, peace through understanding. Admiral Jones stood on her ship's observation deck, watching the construction. Earth glowed below, now home to 3 civilizations working together. 5 hours to win the war, she said quietly, and a lifetime to build the peace. That's the way it should be. 1 year after the 5-hour war, Ambassador Gray stood in the new Galactic Council chamber on Earth. The room was packed with representatives from all 3 civilizations: Council, Coalition, and Human. Above them, through the transparent dome, ships from all 3 fleets patrolled together. "If someone had told me a year ago that I would be standing here," Gray said to the assembly, "I would have thought they were crazy. We spent 200 years watching humanity, thinking we were studying primitives. Instead, they were teaching us the greatest lesson in galactic history." The screens around the chamber showed images from the past year. Human farmers teaching sustainable agriculture on coalition worlds. Coalition engineers working with human scientists to develop better spaceships. Council doctors learning Earth medicine to help in refugee camps. Children from all 3 civilizations attending the same schools. "We thought we were advanced because we had better technology," Gray continued. "But humanity showed us that true advancement isn't about having the fanciest weapons or the strongest shields. It's about knowing when to fight, how to fight, and most importantly, how to make peace." In orbit, Admiral Jones and Commander Red supervised training exercises for the Combined Defense Force. Human ships practiced alongside alien vessels, teaching each other their best tactics. The new ships they built together combined the best of all worlds: human practicality, coalition power, and council precision. "Watch this," Jones said to a group of alien cadets. She pointed to a training squadron doing close-range maneuvers. "See how the ships move. We learned that from Earth's fighter pilots. But now we're using coalition engines to make it even better." That's what progress looks like. Down on Earth, in what used to be the coalition refugee camps, new cities were rising. They weren't just human cities or alien cities. They were something new. Buildings combined Earth architecture with alien technology. Streets were filled with people from all three civilizations living and working together. General West, now retiring from active service, walked through one of these new cities with Coalition Leader Black. They stopped at a school where human and alien children played together in the yard. "You know what the funny thing is?" Black said, watching the children. "We fought for 50 years because we thought we were too different to live together. Now look at them. They don't even see the differences anymore." In the Mars observation post, now a museum of first contact, tourists from all three civilizations came to see where it all began. They could stand where Gray had stood, watching Earth for all those years. The tour guides told the story of how humanity had hidden their true capabilities, preparing not just to fight a war, but to build a lasting peace. Back in the council chamber, Gray finished his speech. "1 year ago, humanity showed us how to win a war in 5 hours. But their real victory wasn't the battle. It was what came after. They showed us that true strength isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about turning enemies into friends." The chamber erupted in applause from all three civilizations. As Gray stepped down from the podium, he looked at the Earth spinning below. The planet that everyone had once thought was home to primitives had become the center of a new galactic civilization. Admiral Jones joined him at the window. "Thinking deep thoughts, Ambassador." "Just remembering how wrong we were about Earth," he replied. "We spent 2 centuries watching you, thinking we were the advanced ones. All that time, you were the teachers, and we were the students." Jones smiled. "Maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. There's always something new to learn, even from the people you think are primitive. The universe is full of surprises." Outside, the sun rose over Earth, lighting up a planet that had changed the galaxy not through superior firepower, but through the simple wisdom of knowing how to win a war and build a peace. The 5-hour war was now just a story in history books, but the peace it brought would last for generations to come.